Hi there, I'm Eitan, and welcome back to Wix Wiz. This is the next installment in our custom product page tutorial, the updated version, where I'm really going in depth about different parts of customizing a product page in Wix. And we've touched on a bunch of things already. As you can see, we already have our media items set up. We have name, price, and our different options set up. And today we're going to be talking about setting up the description and the additional product info. So just to show you on our products dashboard what I'm talking about this description over here and these additional info sections. So for that, we are going to need a text box and we're going to need a repeater. But as you'll see, we're going to run into some challenges when we get to this additional info section, and I'll explain why when we get there. So our template that we're using, which is Etsy, doesn't really seem to have any product description. So I'm going to take the liberty and I'm just going to add the description over here on the left side, right under the image, but you can use these principles and add the description wherever you'd like. So for the product description, I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to add an element, and I'm going to add a text element, and I'm going to choose this middle size text right over here. And I'm going to drag that right here under my media setup right on top. Let's stretch it out a little bit, and I'm going to rename this to description. And then what we have to do is just link it to the correct data. So let's zoom in here a little bit, and we're just going to be linking it to this description. What I have here, this is just the product data that we get back when we get our current item from the data set. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go right over here to where we set our main media and our name, and that's in the on ready for the data set. And I'm just going to go ahead and I'm going to say description dot text should be equal to this product dot description. And if we go ahead into preview mode, then we should be able to see that this will have our description instead of just I'm a paragraph, click here, etc. So let's wait 1 second till we get into preview mode. And it doesn't say that. So where is the error? Let's see if we have anything in the console. No, we don't. Okay, so I see that our entire product didn't load correctly. So you see here, nothing here is really working. So let's just head back to the editor and let's see if maybe I added something into the code that kind of threw it off whack. So I don't see that that is the case. I don't have anything red coming up here. So let's just try one more time to go into preview mode. Maybe we were just having a slight Wix error over there. So I'm going to head back into preview mode, and let's see if our product loads correctly this time. And there we go. So I am a product, and here I'm a product description. Okay, so that looks great. But let's say we had a description that was much longer. So I'm just going to take this and I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to double that. And in the description, we could also make different edits using HTML. So basically I can make this, let's say, bold, and I can make this italicized. Okay, I can make this underlined. And let's see what that looks like once we take a look at our preview now. So I'm going to head back to the editor. And let's head into preview mode again and see what this looks like now that we have changed our description in the product dashboard. So what you can see now is you'll have all these weird P's and EM and stuff like that. And that is because this is now HTML. Okay, this isn't just plain text anymore. And that is what allows you to really format the text and add the underline and stuff like that. So P is just paragraph, and then strong here, that's what's making this bold. and EM, I think, is the italicized, U underline, etc. So what we need to do is instead of telling this text box that we want this to be equal to just the text of the description, we're actually going to tell it that we want the HTML to be equal to this product.description. So instead of text over here, let me just zoom right back in. We're going to be writing HTML. Okay. And if you go and preview again now we'll see that all those P's and other tags that we had in there, the HTML tags, they will all disappear. And instead, we will have a formatted text. Okay. So that solved that. Okay, so now our description is actually a formatted text. And I just want to address one more thing. So as you can see here, the description is quite long. Okay, so let's say I want to make this description a little shorter. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to head back into the editor. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to do two things. So first of all, I'm going to make this a little wider. And this is just kind of bonus, okay? It could be that you don't mind that the description is long and you want to display the whole entire description every time. But I'm kind of going for a case where, whoops, I made it go outside of the column. That's not good. Okay, so I'm going to go for a case where I only want to display the description until a certain point, and then I'm going to add a button that's going to say read more. So let me add a button in here. So I'm just going to choose this button that looks kind of like plain text, and I'm going to add that in. And I'm going to put that right under my description. And I'm just going to change it to say read more. No, so I don't want it to be connected. I want to change text and icon. And I'm just going to change that to say read more. And then I'm just going to go inside and I'm going to make some changes to my description. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say that my description.html, whoa, sorry, made it way too big. My description.html will be equal to this product.description, and then I'm going to say dot substring. Okay, this will basically take only part of this string, which is the description. And let's say I'll take from 0 to 100. So I'm only going to take 100 characters. And then after the substring, I'm going to add a closing paragraph tag for HTML. Whoops. And then right before the closing paragraph tag, I'm going to add 3 dots. Okay, so what this should look like is 100 characters of text that are cut off, and then there's 3 dots. And then I'm going to add the on-click for our button. Okay, so let's rename this to read more button. Okay, and then let's add our event listener. So W, and then we'll select the read more button and on click. And what I'm going to do when we have our on click, I'm just going to take this and I'm going to change it to the full description that's not the substring. Okay, and we're also going to do a little more here later on, but for now this is what we're going to change over here. So let's head into preview mode and let's see what this looks like. So I'm going to zoom back out and head into preview mode. Okay, so let's take a look at our description now. Okay, so I see our product did not load completely, so I'm going to head back to the editor. And I'm going to go back into preview mode. Okay, so let's see if we're having any, okay. So we have actually a console error, and I wrote substring. What did I spell something wrong? Maybe substring is not supposed to be capitalized like this. That's what I think the problem is. So let's go back, and I'm just going to go right up here. And yeah, so instead of description, that's substring. Okay, yeah, sorry. So it's not capital. And let's go into preview. And there we go. Okay, so you can see here that we have our description, and then it's cut off here after 100 characters. We have 3 dots. Then when I click read more, it expands out the entire text. So this is actually something useful that you can use in other places in your website as well, not only on the custom product page. But this is one, very unique use case for this. And you can change the amount of characters and or not even use this. It's really up to you. Okay, so that's a little bit about the description. What I want to do now is also add in our info sections. Okay, so what we have over here is our custom info sections, and that's a little more complicated because we're going to need to use a repeater in order to add those. So let's head back to the editor over here. Excellent. And now I'm just going to throw in a repeater that we are going to use for our info section. So let's go down here to list. And then to repeaters. And let me add in a repeater just like this. And I'm going to manage items. I'm going to get rid of these 2 items. So I'm going to delete that. Whoops, manage items. And then I'm going to go over here. I'm going to delete that item and delete this item, because anyways, we're going to be populating these with data. So I don't need those excess items over there. And I'm going to go ahead and make this a lot thinner. And make the repeater thinner as well. Yeah, and I'm going to put this actually right above our read more button. And this additional info is going to be hidden by default. Okay, it's going to be collapsed actually. And I'm only going to display this when we click the read more button. But for now, I'm going to set it up so that it always displays just for as we're setting it up. And let's put that right over here under our description. Okay, so now we have our description and we have our additional info repeater. And inside of this repeater, we are going to need to have a text box. So let's get some text in there. And we're actually going to need a paragraph, okay, for the content itself. Let me drag that over there into the repeater. And we are also going to need something that will act as a title. So let's add, for example, let's just add a heading 6. Yeah, that's a little too big, so I'm going to go ahead in there and edit the text. Let's make this size 18. Oops. Size 18. I wrote 18, but I can write here title. And I'm going to make this size 18. Select it all, make it size 18. I hope you find this very amusing. And I'm going to head and put this title right over here above the paragraph. Okay. And this is going to be one info section, and then we're going to populate this with data, and we'll have a bunch of info sections. So if I go over here into my code, I'm going to change the title's name to info section title. And then I'm going to change this to info section content. And I'm going to rename the repeater to be info section repeater. Okay. And now let's hop in and actually write some code. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit so we can see our code section a little better. And let's take a look first at the data, because the data is always the most important. So we have additional info sections, and it's an array of objects. Each object has title and description. So I'm going to change this actually instead of content to description, so that it matches our data and it'll be easier to work with. So basically what I need to do is we need to set the on item ready for our repeater. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and I'm just going to say additional info sections. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select our repeater. So info sections repeater. I wrote section and not sections. So let's change that. Info sections repeater and change it here as well. Okay, so dot on item ready. Sorry about that. And right over here, we are going to have our item, and we're going to have our item data. And what do we want to happen once we get our data? So we want our title. So that's info section title dot text to be equal to item data dot title. And we want our, so if you noticed here, I made a mistake. This should be item. And the same thing for description. So we want our, same mistake twice, amazing. Info section description. Dot, and here as well, we want it to be HTML. Okay, just like we wanted it to be before, because these info sections can also be edited and customized using HTML properties. So they can be made bold, they can be made underline, etc. Okay, and this is going to be equal to item data dot description. And the last thing that we need to do is we need to write the function that will actually populate additional info repeater. And what that will do is it will say additional info, what did I name it? Info section repeater data should be equal to this product dot, and then let's go back up here to find our additional info sections. Okay. But if you remember, we also need to map this out and add in IDs, okay? Because our repeaters require IDs, and you'll see in a moment what I mean if you're not familiar with this. So this is an array, so I'm going to be mapping out this array. And in each array, we have the item itself, and we're going to have an index, which is just the index within the array. And here in our map function, we're going to say that each of these objects, each of these items should be equal to the original item and an additional property, which is the ID of the index.toString. Okay, so now each one will have an ID. The first one will have an ID of 0, and then 1, and then 2, and etc. And this will actually make sure that our repeater populates, because this is a condition for populating a repeater with data. And we're going to run this function. I copied that, and we're going to run this function right over here. And that should be good. So let's go up here, make sure that all our styling is good. So I'm going to bring that out so that it's filling the entire container. And yeah, let's make the container fill the entire repeater. And you can leave this to be this kind of grayish color, or you can change the background to whatever you want. I'm going to make sure that's aligned over there. Okay, so now what we should have when I go into preview mode is a 3 of our additional info sections, one after another. Okay, so you see here the titles, product info, and you can see here our additional info details. Okay, and if I go into the product itself and I edit these product info things here, so I change this, I make this bold, I make this underlined, then that, if I save, will be reflected here as well. Okay, and I'm going to show you that in one moment. But one last thing that I want to do, so let's do some styling here. So I'm going to change, let's say, the background of this container. Let's change the design. So I'm going to change the corners. I'm going to give it like a border radius. So let's make it 12. Okay, so it looks a little more styled. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to make this repeater, it'll originally be collapsed. And then when I click the Read More button, it's going to expand. So let's go over here and go to our Read More button. And in addition to making the description.html change, I'm also going to make our info sections repeater dot expand. I'm going to add one final touch, that I'm going to change the Read More button dot label. I'm going to make that say read less. And I'm also going to add an event listener to the button. So read more button dot on click. And then when we click on this button, we're actually going to do the reverse. So I'm going to change the description back to the original description. So let's find that right over here. Okay, so I'm going to change back to this description. And dun, 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 dun. Yeah, so change back the description and collapse the additional info sections. So info section repeater dot collapse. And then change this back to read more. Sorry, read more button dot label equals read more. And I might change one more thing here. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to abstract this out into a function. So I'm going to say read more button handler. And I'll explain in a second why I'm doing this, but basically I'm going to take this entire function and I am going to put it into this wrapper function over here, this event handler. And what I'm going to do here is that on this onClick, I'm going to call the read more button handler like that. And the reason I'm doing that is because I also want to call this inside of this function itself. Okay, so this is kind of a loop function, and this will basically ensure that the behavior will keep on going in a loop. So when we click on the read more button, it'll turn into the read less button. And then when we click onto the read less button, it'll turn back into the read more button, etc., etc. And let's see if my logic is correct. So let's head into preview mode. And okay, so we have our read more button. I click on it. Our product info expanded, excellent. And you can see that this one is styled because this one I changed the styling. And if you want these to look good as well, all you have to do is just go in and make a tiny change to the info sections, which you probably will do from the Wix template anyways. And then when I click here on read less, everything collapses back up, and read more, and it goes back. Okay. And if we wanted to add like a nice touch, I could add like a scroll to the product description. So let's head back in there. And I'm just going to say that when we click on the read more button, which is actually the read less button at this point, then we're going to scroll to the description. So let's say description dot scroll to. And this is just a nice touch of UX over there. So let's head back into preview mode and let's test it out. So if I click read more, it expands. Yay, I read. I click read less, and we scroll back up to the product description. Okay, and you could scroll back up to some other point as well. And that kind of wraps up adding the product description and the additional product info. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. If you did, please don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll be back soon for more product page customization tutorials. So I'll see you next time.